Well, today, April 28th, is the deadline to return middle school students to full-time in-person learning. And we've now learned that all high school students will be required to return to in-person full-time learning as well by May 17th. Joining us now is Commissioner of Elementary and Secondary Education, Jeff Riley. Commissioner, thanks for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
We want to ask you what went into the decision and why did you pick the date of May 17th?
You know, all the decisions we make regarding school openings, we work with our medical professionals to make what we think are the best decisions for kids and their families.
How did you come up with the May 17th date?
We decided for a staggered approach where we started, as you know, with the elementary schools at the beginning of April. And then after the vacation, this week we start with middle schools. And then a few weeks later, we start with the high schools.
Okay. Students who don't return until this deadline, they'll have about a month or so in school. Some parents, some students are wondering if it's worth it at this point, or are we better off focusing on planning for the fall? What's your response to that?
We think every day of school is crucial. We've seen the effects of kids being out of school, not just on the academics, but on their social emotional health. So we think as soon as we can get kids back to school, we need to do so.
So any time spent in school you are viewing as a positive thing?
That's correct, and we've argued that since day one.
What about high school seniors? They often end the year earlier. Is this deadline just too late for them?
No, most seniors will be able to go back for several weeks. Obviously, this has been really challenging for high school seniors who have been out of school for over a year. But I think being allowed to come back will allow them to have some sense of closure in their high school careers.
This next question came to us from a viewer. They're wondering, are the state or individual school districts going to help vaccinate 16 to 18-year-old students, high school-age students, now that it's required that they come back?
So I think that we're very excited about what's happened with the vaccination in Massachusetts. Our state is a leader in vaccinating people. Right now, the Secretary Sutters and the governor are driving the vaccinations. I don't think at this time they're going to be set up in schools, but certainly the supply is more available than it's ever been before.
There are some school districts that still have some space limitations, assuming those will not be fixed within 3 weeks. How are they supposed to meet this deadline? Does that fall into the waiver category?
So we have about 100% of our elementary schools currently back in. We expect by Wednesday that we'll have 95 or 96% of our middle schools back in. We will work with high schools to see if there are waiver requests or any help that needs to be given on a case-by-case basis, much like we did for the elementary and middle schools, but we've been pretty successful in being able to get almost everybody back in.
As we mentioned earlier, the middle school students are supposed to return to in-person learning today, and we were curious how many waivers did you end up granting to the middle schools?
I don't have the data in front of me, but it's just a small number. I think in total, our waivers for middle schools were more about delays than a change in program. So we did allow some districts to start later, for instance, if they needed to.
Okay, and you said the same sort of factors that you gave to elementary and middle you'll take into account for the high schools if they do put in those requests.
That's correct.
How confident are you in the MCAS testing plans right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been very reasonable throughout the pandemic. As you know, last year we canceled MCAS and we were able to modify the CD for seniors so that they could graduate without having to take it. We provided additional relief this year, including modifying the CD for juniors so that they would not be penalized. And we're cutting the testing down in half in grades K to 8.
Looking ahead, what kind of preparations are being made for the fall, just given how much learning loss occurred over the last year? I mean, how do you help the kids who have fallen so far behind get caught up?
Well, I mean, I think the diagnostic that you talk about will give us some idea of, where we're at and where we need to go. We're not waiting for the fall, frankly. We're starting the summer with a fairly robust summer learning opportunities for our kids. And we think this is going to be a multi-year approach to get our kids back on track.
is that going to be a sort of at-home summer learning program or a sort of a summer school type opportunity that you're talking
Right.
about?
We're gonna have in-person summer school opportunities for students in schools this summer, acceleration academies and other programs working with outside enrichment providers where we'll embed academics into those programs as well. So it's a multi-pronged approach, and we hope to have a lot of kids learning and being outside and for enrichment this summer.
Okay, Commissioner of Elementary and Secondary Education, Jeff Rowley, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.